Hello everyone and welcome to a very nice game you guys requested from yesterday's Title Tuesday. It is Czech Grandmaster Wojtek Plat versus Magnus Carlsen. It's a pretty crazy game featuring a fun opening. We haven't had it in a serious game. Okay, it's hard to call a Title Tuesday game a serious game, but these are very strong players and okay, this is not the starting position. The reason I already have it on the board is because the position was already reached in a classical tournament in 2018 in Tournament of Peace in Zagreb, Croatia, where Vladimir Ivanchuk played this with the black pieces against Vladimir Malakov, only through a different move order. In that game, Malakov played knight f3, Ivanchuk played pawn to f5, and then only after d3 and knight to c6, e4, e5 was played. So just wanted to mention that as we will talk about a completely new position being reached. So yeah, it was reached but through a transposition. So here Wojtek opened with pawn to e4, Magnus replied knight to c6, and now after knight to f3, the so-called Nimzovich defense declined, Magnus went pawn to f5. This is the Colorado counter gambit that is usually best countered by accepting it. E captures on f5. And if anyone plays this against you, know that capturing is not only perfectly fine, but it is in fact a free pawn. So what you will do is capture this pawn, and then after black plays pawn to d5 to recapture on f5, you will give it back. But after bishop to b5 and bishop captures on f5, you have this very nice knight to c5 move, and black has nothing better than to lose the tempo with bishop to d7. You can't get the knight to help out with the defense, and you can't play queen to d7. You can offer a second pawn sacrifice with pawn to a6, but it's not going to be that impressive. And after bishop to d7, just a nice bishop captures, and d4, and white has a very, very pleasant game. Yes, you are no longer up a pawn, but black does not have an f-pawn, and it just looks very weird. On the other hand, black does have the bishop pair, so obviously Magnus had something planned if challenged to the main line, that is the e captures on f5. But in this game, Wojtek played pawn to d3, which is already leaving any advantage that you might have had, and allowing Magnus to strike with pawn to e5. And in that game that we mentioned, Malakov versus Ivanchuk, knight to c3 was played. Here we have bishop to g5, and it is now, as of move 4 already, that we have not a completely new game, but a deviation from that game. A new game will have to wait a little bit. Bishop to e7, bishop captures, we have knight g captures on e7, and knight to c3. We have castles kingside, and bishop to e2, pawn to d6, and now pawn to d4. Opening up the center with your king still being in the center of the board. So maybe not the best, but okay. I mean, it's 3-minute blitz. You can see that they're playing pretty much instant moves. Magnus burned 5 seconds. Wojtek spent 13 seconds. Okay, plus increment. So f captures on e4, knight captures on e4, and now as you do have a tempo on the knight, Magnus will grab the center. d5, knight g3, and pawn to e4. Okay, the knight goes to e5, and Magnus trades. Knight captures, d captures, and pawn to c6. And next he will play knight to g6. He will try to put pressure on the f2 pawn, and also he will just try to win the e5 pawn. So we have castles kingside, knight to g6 going after the e5 pawn, and pawn to c4. Inviting Magnus to capture on e5, but capturing on e5 here after, for example, captures, and queen b3 isn't all that impressive. Already you're threatening to win the pawn back as the d5 pawn is pinned, and not a lot you can do about it. For example, if king to h8, rook a d1, and it's very, very hard to play. Again, if bishop to e6, you can still play knight captures on e4, as now the d pawn is pinned on the queen. So yeah, it's nice, but it's nothing serious if Magnus captures the e5 pawn right away. So Magnus goes knight to f4. Puts pressure on the bishop. And it's always better to have tension on your opponent than having your opponent have tension on you. C captures on d5. We have c captures and queen to d4. Now the e5 pawn is defended, and the Magnus goes bishop to g5. I forgot to mention, we haven't really had any games by Wojtek Plat on the channel so far, but he is, I believe, the 2016 Czech champion. So yeah, that's a pretty big tournament to win. And here the problem is Magnus is just, well, probably winning, you know, maybe with perfect play. You can defend this against Magnus. There's no way you can defend this in a blitz game. And the problem is, what is the threat? Well, Magnus will simply play bishop to e6, play rook to c8, and well, if you don't do anything weird, let's say you play rook 8 to c1 to stop Magnus from developing his rook on the c file, Magnus can even just play bishop to h3, and now you're just lost. You're going to lose the pawn on g2, and if the pawn, if pawn captures bishop, then look at this, knight captures on e2 check, wins the queen, as the knight is now pinned on the g file. So that's the problem, and this is the first time in the game where Wojtek actually spent some time. He invested almost a full minute in one move, which is, I mean, an eternity in a 3-minute game. He played pawn to f3, and he missed, well, have at it. Feel free to pause the video. What did he miss? Yes, I've already said it. He missed the queen captures on g3. This is what he played, and he was in this position on move 17 that Wojtek Platt resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Once the queen is captured, as you have nothing better if you don't want to be down material, knight captures on e2 check, connects nicely with the queen on d4, king to h2, knight captures on d4, and now you will be down 2 pieces. Of course, you're not playing that against Magnus Carlsen. That would just be silly. But yeah, very interesting. And okay, we could also prescribe this to the Magnus effect, where, you know, if anyone else plays pawn to f5, of course you instantly capture. Against Magnus, you play pawn to d3, and then you just give Magnus an equal position on move 3, which is simply unheard of. But yeah, in case you will try this with, you know, if you encounter this with white, or if you're gonna, if you want to give it a try with black, maybe, you know, for a blitz game, for a bullet game, it's definitely a nice attempt. After e captures on f5, do give this a try. And this will be the main line, so probably everyone will play it against you. You will gain back your opponent after knight e5. Your opponent will have a very nice position, but yeah, for example, bishop captures on c6, bishop captures and pawn to d4. Okay, you have the bishop pair. At some point, white maybe captures on c6, maybe not. I don't know. I've never actually analyzed these positions. The knight on e5 is a beautiful piece, so, you know, who knows? It's a pretty nice position. But, you know, if someone plays pawn to e4 and you play knight to c6, you will definitely surprise them. Probably most will just play pawn to d4 and go for the main stuff. But yeah, if knight f3, f5, you know, maybe try it. Maybe you guys will enjoy it. Yeah, that's the game. Really hope you guys enjoyed it. Very nicely played by Magnus Carlsen, but it is Javokir Sindarov and Hans Moke Niemann who win the tournament. They both have only one loss. Hans lost to Javokir, and I think Javokir lost to Aravind. But yeah, other than that, pretty nice tournament by both of them. I did check their games. I didn't find one particularly interesting to show. This one, you know, it's a very nice opening. I don't think we've had it quite at this level. So yeah. If you guys have any others that you would like to see, use that hashtag suggestion. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank E1 Check, Only Bullet, Random Pawn, Douglas Van Badhuinsen, and Samuel Kamuli for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions, such as this one, and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And also, would you like to have a tournament amongst subscribers? Someone mentioned it in the comments. I thought, yeah, we haven't had one in a long time, you know, to see who ranks where. What do you think about that? See you soon.